So write a program IS that reads a file named famous.txt. Each line has the name of a person followed by the year in which he or she was born. Your program should print the names of the youngest persons in the file. In the case of a tie, your program must print the names of all the youngest persons. So suppose the file famous.txt. So I have that file here. It is Jimmy Carter, 1924, Bill Clinton, 1946, Gerald Ford, 1913, George H.W. Bush, 1924, right? George W. Bush, 1946. So who is the youngest? Well, both Clinton and George W. Bush were born in 1946, right? So they are the youngest. So how do we detect the youngest? The highest, the maximum of the year number, right? Your resulting output should be Bill Clinton and George W. Bush. Okay, so this is the text file. So you are going to use file methods to detect who is the youngest. There you go. So what does it do? I'm opening my file famous.txt. By default, it's only for reading purposes. I'm calling it in file. Let's start with the year equals 0 and young to be the empty list. So why a list? Because you might have more than one person, right? Now iterate through your file. For line in file, line list. So split your, so let's look at our in file. Where did my file go? There you go. Each line is a name with spaces, you see, and there might be even middle initials. And then space and then year. So number is over here. All right. So I want to be able to capture these numbers, right? So basically, let me split my line into words. So use default split. If integer, so when I default split, the last entry will be these years. But notice it's stored as string. So convert that to int. And if that int is greater than my present year, so to begin with, my year is 0, right? Now, well, okay, none of these guys were born in year 0. So at least the first guy will be greater than year, right? Update that year to the integer of these strings, integer. So that's the year. And young is now updated to contain the name. Who is the name? So name is the first part. So notice first part is not a given. I don't know how long they are. Some of them are even with middle initials. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at my original line, not the list. I'm not looking at the line list. I'm looking at my original line and avoiding these last characters. So why am I saying -5? Look, that's -1, -2, -3, -4. So why am I saying -5? That's because my file was built using a new line character at the end. It's the new line which gets me to the next line. New line. So there is an invisible new line character. Now it all depends on how you build your file, right? So I built it using new line character. That's why I needed one more character. So -1 is a new line character, -2, -3, -4, -5. So everything before that is the name. That's young. Okay. So if my year is greater than the biggest year so far, then my name gets that name. If that year is already my greatest, so my integer is already equal to the greatest, then I have to append one more name. That's why the second elif. If my year is not bigger than the current max, then pass, ignore it. And at the end of this for loop, another for loop, now you have young, which is a list of names, print those with default new line. Okay, so let's run this. So it opened famous.txt and printed the two youngest president names. Okay, so those were my solutions to SampleFinalE exam.